currently living abroad, what is one time that made you realize that America really messed you up?
I'm glad you're watching, amazing viewer. Thank you so much for stopping by. Thank you so much for supporting my content. Thank you for your feedbacks. I don't take for granted the love and support that you're showing me. I appreciate you guys. Let's dive into today's video. Things that have shocked Americans, they have messed them up, you know. There are Americans living abroad, and they're speaking of the experiences, things that they never thought of, and they realize that, yeah, it's a reality in other countries. Things to do with healthcare that most people spoke of. You know, in America, you can get sick, and even being scared of going to the hospital, especially calling an ambulance, is a problem. You have to afford it. While in other countries, it's free. It's free to just be treated with an ambulance, you know. Yeah, there's a lot to discover. I will urge you guys to watch this video to the end. There's a lot to discover. I appreciate it. Continue
Here are
watching.
3 reasons why I don't live in the United States and why the rest of the world thinks Americans are loco. And if you saw my part 1 video for why I don't live in the United States and it pissed you off, well then you're really gonna love this one. But as all of you patriots told me in the comments section, if you don't like it, you can get out. I'm about to get really unhinged in this video, strap in. But the first reason I don't live in the United States is theocracy, an obsession with religion. And this is not the main reason I don't live in the United States, but stick around until the end and I will get to that. Religious fundamentalists have taken over the government. They run the country. If you don't know that, you're not paying attention. I'm sorry. But they have obliterated a woman's right to choose what happens to her body. They have demonized the LGBTQ community, and they are obsessed with the banning of adult content because, well, let's face it, sexual oppression is a primary mechanism of control. It's also hypocritical because every single day you can find a new news story about a religious authority or a religious politician abusing children. Almost all other developed nations are far less religious and far more scientific and look down on the United States' obsession with religion in shock and horror. We've already tried theocracy in our history. The Crusades, the Inquisition, witch burnings. Who wants to go back to that? We're supposed to have a separation of church and state. It is in the founding documents for a reason, but that has never been the case. Second reason the US is loco is because of our divided population. Whether it is between 2 opposing political parties, or what sports team you root for, or which generation you're from, the United States loves to divide people into 2 opposing categories and make them fight each other. Just a little newsflash for Americans who don't recognize the fact that we are one of the only developed countries with a 2-party political system. Most other countries have multitude of options to choose from, but we are stuck with 2 options, the lesser of 2 evils, and that is not a choice. And the third reason I don't live in the United States, and the most important to me, is the serious inequality there. It is out of control and it's disgusting. We are the richest country on earth apparently, yet we have the highest population of homeless people. Simultaneously have the highest population of billionaires in the world. That shit doesn't add up. Oh, you don't like homeless people? Well, a shocking percentage of homeless people are veterans who protected and served our country. But as soon as we're done using up their bodies, we throw them away and don't care about what happens to them. America has a seriously unreconciled issue with racism, starting with the tragic history of what happened with the Native Americans, and then to the African Americans who we thought was okay to own as slaves, and then pretty much every other immigrant group since the founding of the country. It's a tragedy. I know a variety of these issues exist around the world, but it's worse in the United States, and it doesn't have to be this way.
So I'm an American who's currently living in Canada, and in 2019, I was working on a film set, and we were breaking for lunch, and I promise this isn't a joke setup, but it was an American, a Canadian, a New Zealander, and an Australian were all waiting and having lunch together, and a truck backfires. Thinking it was a gunshot, I immediately hop underneath the table and am looking around before I realize what it was. And as I slowly get up, everybody's like, what? Why is she? And the Australian goes, you're an American. That's right. Yeah.
So I moved to the UK about 10 years ago for university, and literally my very first night there, I was fresh off the plane. It was freshers night, which is like the whole first week of university in the UK. You like go out drinking at like different bars or whatever. And we went out drinking, and this one girl that I was with got so drunk that on the way back home to our student accommodation, she was like, oh, I need to sit down. And she sat down and she just like passed out, and we could not wake her up. Like the girl was just like dead to the world, it seemed like. And immediately the people I was with was like, we need to call an ambulance. And being an American, I was like, we cannot call an ambulance. Like I had just met this girl. I had no idea if she could afford an ambulance. So I was like begging them not to call an ambulance. And they were looking at me like, do you want this person to die? Like, what is wrong with you? So they called an ambulance. The ambulance came, they like checked her out, like she was, you know, alive or whatever. And they took her to the hospital. And I was like hysterical because I was like, oh my God, I've like just moved here and I've like potentially ruined this person's life by like putting them in medical debt for the next God knows how long by calling them an ambulance. And like they brought me home, they sat me down and they were like, what are you freaking out about? And I explained what I was so worried about. And they were like, ambulances are free. Hospitals are free. What is wrong with you? And like, I hadn't realized until that point that healthcare in the UK was completely free. And I still, to this day, like, get nervous every time I have to call an ambulance. But yeah, no, ambulances are free. It's amazing.
American living in the UK. My second week living here, I got bit by my cat when I took him to the vet, and the vet's like, you need to go to the doctor or to the emergency room. I started crying because I explained I don't have insurance, I can't afford it, and he goes, just call 111. 111 is their medical advice one. So I call, I explain the situation, they set me up at the local hospital. I go to the emergency room. At the emergency room, they cleaned it, cut it, stitched it, bandaged it, and gave me all of that medicine, as well as set up a follow-up appointment a week later to teach me how to clean my bandages and to give me more supplies. This is especially jarring because in America, I still have the scar. I got bit by a cat. I didn't have insurance. It took weeks to get the rabies vaccine. When I got it, it was expired. And when I went to the doctor, it was $175 for them to look at it and give me a tetanus shot because he said it'd be $200 to give me ibuprofen or to put on a bandage.
For an American currently living abroad, what is one time that made you realize that America really messed you up?
Well, I could tell you about one time or 7. When I realized that after having lived in Germany for several years, I had not once been to the doctor or dentist because I thought they're hidden costs, copays for every visit. Nope. Or when I first ate spaghetti in front of Europeans like this, I realized that my sacrilegious slicing of the noodles was not just a lack of cultural awareness. It was so that I could pre-process my food so that I could eat faster and, more importantly, more, so I could stuff my gluttonous face instead of patiently twirling the noodles and, enjoying the meal. Or whenever I hear non-native English speakers speak impeccable English or another foreign language, I think about the time when I used to think, for about 20 years of my life, that learning a foreign language was unimportant. Like juggling. A fun but ultimately useless party trick. Until I realized how valuable, exciting, enriching, and world-opening learning another language really is. Or when I realized that standing up to urinate means that I had been spreading my pee droplets all over my bathroom for 2 days.
Did you realize that America...
When I was stationed in Germany, it really opened my eyes to America. Like, did you know that they have free healthcare? They have free education for college? Did you know that their police have to go to a 2.5 year, it's kind of like a basic training, basically teaching them how to detain people without having to kill them. Like, America really is fucked up.
And this is the perfect way. I'm an American living in Switzerland. I live in Geneva, and I have my 2 dogs here. I was at a dog park, and it's like a little fenced-in area in a much larger park, and there's like outdoor workout areas, and people are picnicking, and there's a playground, and I mean, it's packed. It's really nice. I'm throwing the ball, and a car backfired. It was this, if you've ever heard it, is like a reverberating, shocking, really loud sound. And birds took off from trees. It was super dramatic. My heart stopped. I dropped to the ground. Instinctively, I'm frantically looking for a way to get out of this park and like planning my exit. And then I realized no one else around me has reacted. They are playing with their children. They're giggling. I'm literally no reaction. And I realized there are no guns. They don't even register. It could be a gunshot.
So I don't live abroad anymore, but for half of 2018, I lived in Germany, and I have so many stories. The town that I lived in had like a main plaza area, and there was a cafe in that plaza. So a couple of my other American friends and I decided to try it out one day, and there was a construction site nearby. We heard a really loud bang, and, you know, we kind of assumed that someone had fired a gun, and so we, like, ducked for cover, and then we were looking around frantically, trying to find, like, a place that we could run to or hide to get out of the situation, and then we realized that no one had shot a gun. No, it was a loud bang from the construction site. That's it. That's all it was. We'd been speaking in English, and we all have really obvious American accents, so all the Germans around us gave us these really sad looks like, oh, these poor, poor Americans.
I'm an American living in Turkey because I have a Turkish husband, and people ask me all the time if I want to move back to the States, and I gotta tell you. I went to the dentist last week and had a root canal. To fix a root canal that an American dentist messed up, they x-rayed me 3 times. My American dentist never x-rayed it. They x-rayed it to make sure the filling was fully taking up the space. They did bleaching that my other dentist in America told me was impossible, and they never even broke the crown of the tooth that if they had broken would have needed to be replaced. They didn't break it. It was the most superb, fantastic, incredible dental care I've ever had. It cost me $7. $7. The original root canal that I had that the Turkish dentist needed to fix was $6,000. My husband and I genuinely do not know how we could ever say goodbye to the healthcare here.
You up.
Ooh, I've been waiting for this one. So at the time I was living in Germany and I had gotten food poisoning after traveling back from the country. And I was so sick, I was not eating, like not taking anything, and it had been like 4 or 5 days. It was really bad. I was too afraid to go to the hospital, 1, because I was afraid I couldn't translate, but 2, like I just didn't want to deal with everything. But my friend said, no, we have to go. So I went. Tell me why we didn't have to wait on an emergency line. I was in the emergency room looking around. I was like, where do I sign in? Like, where's the line? Where are all the people? And they're like, no, you can go right in and go sit down. We'll be right with you. And I literally walked straight into the office, like straight in. And while I was struggling to explain what was going on, they brought in 5 different doctors of each different one. And it only took them 5 minutes to come each time when they realized they couldn't help me. It was somebody else they needed. And I didn't have to pay anything on top of that.
So I'm from Chicago, and I moved to Denmark when I was like 14. And I've been in public school ever since I moved here. And I remember this one time I was with my friends, and this is probably like the first 6 months of my first year at school here. And I was just like, we haven't had an intruder drill yet. Like, when are we gonna have one of those? And they were just like, what is an intruder drill? What is that? And I had to like explain, like, you know, it's like you're practicing in case someone comes into school to come like shoot or something. And they're just like, we do not do that here. There is no threat of people coming to kill us. And then I was like, oh yeah, I don't have to be like scared for my life at school in this country. Forgot about
In
that.
the next clip right here, we'll be looking at how the system works in America, from tax to how the services are provided to people in America, especially in the healthcare, so that you get to understand why is it expensive in America to receive healthcare. Yeah, let's look at that.
Here's how the system works. You pay taxes to the government pools that money and uses it to provide the people with essential goods and services that they need. In this country, we've got a different system for getting the things we need. Take healthcare. We pay taxes to the government, and the government gives our money to a middleman, for-profit insurance companies or for-profit health providers. And the insurance companies provide health coverage in exchange for maybe some more money from us, and a deductible that covers not everything, certainly not your teeth or your skin or your eyes. It's a pretty good system if you own an insurance company. Companies like United Health and Aetna collect 70% of their health plan revenue from government programs. Humana, 90%. These health plan businesses would not exist without our tax money. And it's not just healthcare. It's pharma, oil and gas, higher education. Taxpayers subsidize these industries who then take their profits, and we still pay so-called free market rates for their product. It's a classic double dip. Here's how the system works.